Namaste. I thought we would do that start on time. Yesterday we were late, and it was really meant to test to see which ones of you are so loyal to the teaching that you're willing to wait for 10 more minutes. That was just a test. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry about the cockpit error. I did not publish twice as it is supposed to do. I got distracted. I just did it once thinking that everything is okay. So I'm happy that you were able to tell me. Anyway, let us wait for another minute or so and then we will get started. I hope all of you are safe and doing well. My heart goes out to those of you that have children because you have to work from home as well as take care of the children. So it's an extra work for you, but I hope that you're taking all the precautions and are keeping well. So best wishes to all of you. So let us start with a small prayer, and then we will play Swami Omkarananda's chant as well, and then we will get started. Let me turn the audio on. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
हरिः ॐ अत्रिणात्वा कृमे हन्मि कण्वेन जमदग्निना विश्वावसोर्ब्रह्मणा हतः कृमीणागुं राजा अप्येषागस्थपतिर्हतः अथो माताथो पिता अथो स्थूरा अथो क्षुद्राः अथो कृष्णा अथो श्वेताः अथो आशातिका हताः श्वेताभिः सह सर्वे हताः आहरावद्य श्रुतस्य हविषो यथा तत्सत्यम् यदमुं यमस्य जम्भयोः आदधामि तथा हि तत् खण्फण्म्रसी हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः
Okay. So let us start from where we left off yesterday. Yesterday we were on the chapter of Pratirodha, or important factors that rub against us and help us to gain progress in our life. And we saw many examples of that, and perhaps the most important one is that our mind should and can act as a rubbing agent, provided we know exactly how to deal with it. If we give in to it, then we've got problems. And in the next chapter, which we will do today, this will be made a little bit clearer. And so that's the topic we were discussing. And we were also saying that we ended the last class by saying that when you talk about Atma, you Rishi should see that this is Paramatma not just Jivatma. So you're not really acting in a selfish way, you're acting with a oneness towards Paramatma. That's the attitude that we should have. This is what we were doing. Okay. Now, let us go forward. So here, Swami Maheshananji says that this travel towards oneness, which leads to the real progress in our life towards Advaita, is not possible unless I become an integrated personality and remove conflicts within myself. This is almost like a stage one. So the stage one is to recognize and deal with conflicts within myself. Okay? So here there is a story in the Upanishads where all the organs of the body, so the eyes and the ears and the tongue and organs of action and so on, were all feeling proud that I'm the most important one in the body. And so they were fighting with each other as to say who is the most superior. So to ascertain that, they went to Brahmaji, Prajapati, the very creator of the whole universe, and said, Brahmaji, can you please tell us who is the most crucial, most important out of all the different organs, including the mind? So Brahmaji thought to himself and he said, I am the one that created the entire universe, including these people. And if I start taking sides, then I am sure to anger everybody else except the best. So he says, I don't want to do that. So he thought of for a method, and he told them, listen, I'll give you a method, you follow that and decide for yourself who is the best. So they said, okay, what is the method? So he said, choose one by one and leave the body for 1 year. And then go back after 1 year and assess how the body did while you were gone. So they said, okay. So the eye raised the hands first. He says, can I go first? He was very absolutely sure he was going to win. So the body said, okay, you go first. So the eyes went and the body became blind. When he came back, he was thinking they're all going to cry for him. They didn't. In fact, the body was very healthy and they was preoccupied in other things. So they said, what happened? They said, well, we kind of missed you, but there are a lot of blind people on the earth who also do well, and this was one of those, and we knew this was going to end, so we didn't miss you that much. So he was very disappointed. So one by one, all these people did the same thing, and they all came back, and once they came back, they all felt disappointed. The mind said, I am definitely superior to all these Indriyas. They are really, I am the coordinator of them, and I'm sure that this will be missed. So the mind left the body for 1 year. When he came back, he was smiling and he was saying, wow, I am sure everybody was saying, why did you leave us? On the contrary, they felt very happy. They had absolutely no problems. And so he said, what happened? How come you did not miss me? So Swamiji says, when the mind goes absent, you become like a madman. You cannot think properly and so on. And the madmen have a characteristic. They do not worry. Because the mind is not there. And this is true. You find that a person who have lost their mind, they're walking in the middle of the road, and doesn't matter if car comes or not. They're laughing when in fact it should be crying. And so this is what happened. So the body said, we had no problems while you were gone. So the mind said, oh my goodness, I'm not the best. Then only the prana was left. When the prana started to leave, they all caught hold of his legs and said, please don't leave. Because if you leave, all of us will be dead. So it is very clear that prana was the most superior one. And so now in listening to this story, one thinks, well, that's just a story, but that's not the story of my life. I'm okay. I'm a pretty, all the organs of my body are behaving themselves. Really? Not so. Don't you have conflicts where your eyes want to go to some kind of a painting exhibition, and your ears, some phone call comes in from a neighbor and he said, I have a juicy gossip for you. And you cannot stand that. Everybody wants to listen to juicy gossips. So the ear says, I want to listen to that. And the eyes are saying, but wait, we were going to go to the painting exhibition. So there is a conflict between them. Even worse than this, your tummy says, I am suffering from hyperacidity. Give me some Tums. I am in bad shape. And the tongue says, listen, I don't care what you say, that is your problem. I want to taste the spicy Indian chaat. I haven't had it for a long time, and I'm going to go to Fremont. There is a famous shop there, and you suffer yourself. Happens. This happens. Also, most importantly, your manaha, your mind, and your buddhi are fighting. The mind wants to do something else, and the buddhi does something else. So Swamiji says, the first thing you should do is to consciously think about making sure that all the various elements of your body are integrated and they obey you. You have to decide. Yes, they can bring in some cases. They're saying, I want to do this, I want to do this. But the guiding principle should be all the things that we talked about. Samyama, vratam. This is what I want to do. And I want to study. Your mind will say, wouldn't it be nice to go to this new movie that has just come in? And you have to decide. So this is the first thing that you need to do. Now, the next step is to extend this oneness, this integrated personality, to include the society at large. So here there is a big discussion in the book, and I won't have time to really go into all of that given the limited time. But let's look at briefly, what is the definition of society? Society is not just crowds living together. It may be synonymous with a country, or it may not be synonymous with the country. It may be synonymous with religion. So it should be defined as a large group of people that have the same objective. This is the definition of society. So here an objection can be raised. If someone says, the society, I belong to the Hindu society, Sanatana Dharma. And there's also Arya Samaj, which is also Hindu, which is a different society. There's the Christian society, there's a Muslim society, Muslim religion. Should we not have everything all together? So here Swamiji makes a very interesting point and an important point. He says, not necessarily. Why? Because take it one step at a time. He gives this example. He says, supposing you have to protect your country. Now, so what that means is that your country's army and air force and navy is all devoted to your country. everybody has to be devoted to their country. Yes, there are some UN forces that join together for some humanitarian purposes and so on, but that's an exception. So what this means is that no, there's nothing wrong with having a society of like-minded people. An example is that people say, I really don't want to drink alcohol. But what can I say? The society all drinks. And it looks very funny if I don't drink. So even though I don't want to drink, I am following the edict of the society. What am I supposed to do? Well, what you should do is to befriend people that think like you do, no drinking, and expand that group as much as is feasible. Doesn't mean that you want to convert everybody into non-drinking. That's not your job. That is Ishvara's job. But you provide a sense of oneness with a group of people which is more than just your own body. This is the step number 2. Here, Swami Maheshananji points out that this is the concept behind kulam. So kulam doesn't mean your own, kulam literally means a family. But it doesn't mean your own spouse and children and grandmother and so on. It means some kind of a family that you have adopted. This is the reason for Gurukulam. The word Gurukulam means like-minded people and have oneness with them. Sometimes even in the ashrams there are conflicts and people are jealous of each other. And when Swami Dayananji was there, this was a problem because they all thought that Swami, I need to have a one-on-one with Swamiji and I don't care about the other people and so on. Not the right conduct. The whole idea of an ashram is that you compromise and you have a sense of oneness with everybody in the family. Anyway, so that's the step number 2. Here, Swami Maheshananji makes a point. He says, a non-integrated person, particularly one who is disturbed and almost violent, is a very dangerous person. The reason is he is so unhappy. He doesn't mind making others unhappy as well. Here's an interesting story that he gave to illustrate that. There was a person in a village that everybody just disliked his behavior and so on. So they were just beating up on him and saying, you get out of here. So one day he decided, this is what happens when people, have murders when they go to work and they have a shooting of all the people because somebody misbehaved with them and they said, I'm going to teach them a lesson. So Swamiji says these people are dangerous because they not only want to take their lives, but they also want to take the other people's lives. So in this example, this person leaves the village and goes into a very dangerous tiger-infested forest. So one day he was sitting there and a Swami passes by and he says, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. Because this is a very dangerous place. And there are tigers and lions around here. He says, I know. I am in fact hoping that one of them eats me. Swami said, what? What do you mean? He says, what I'm hoping for is, and this is a fact, once a tiger eats a human being, it has a taste of killing other human beings. It becomes a man-eater. As you know, this is a thing that happens not very often, but occasionally it happens in India. So he says, I am ready to die, but I want the tiger to go to the village and eat everybody else. So a non-integrated person, an unhappy person, is a very dangerous person. That's the point that Swamiji made. Okay, let's go on. So just a brief summary of this chapter. So Swamiji says the steps are, and this will be carried on in the next chapter, from having a troubled personality, which in Sanskritam would be called Durjana. Durjana means not a good person. The next level of development is to become Sajjana, a person with good conduct. From there, you go with Ekata, a sense of oneness. You have to at least have a society that protects you, who thinks alike with you. From the Ekata comes peace. That is the result of Ekata. So the Ekata means a sense of oneness with the society or with the nation and the whole humanity. It is not meant for humanity. Not meant for humanity. It is meant for you to have peace so that you don't fight. You have to really discover peace in yourself, and then the final step is Swatantrata, complete freedom. And so one of the requirements for gaining Swatantrata, freedom, is a peaceful mind. It is not possible if you have a troubled mind to suddenly go to a Vedanta class and discover the Atma. Not possible. It won't work. So go step by step. And so this is the summary of the chapter called Pratirodha. Okay. Now let us launch into the last chapter, which is called Swatantrata, freedom, and the march towards it. The whole text is about the process. It doesn't talk much about the very nature of the Atma. Of course it does, but that's not the main focus. That is in a traditional Vedanta class. This is really more meant for personality development, so you are ready for it. So number 7 is Swatantrata. So let us look into the last chapter. Let me see how much time I have. 8:20. I think I should be able to wrap it up. Okay. So in examining the concept of freedom, independence, and instead of dependence, here is what we have to see. So if we examine the nature of this creation by Ishvara, purposeful creation, what we find is that all created things are made dependent on certain laws of nature. All created things. And the created things very roughly are 3 in nature, which is my physical body, my subtle body, and the outside world of moving and unmoving things that I am interacting with. These are the 3 main things. Main things means this is a grouping. So what we find is that these things all follow a natural order. They are dependent on the order. There is an order already. So this is why the sun rises and sets at a very particular time. And this is why the Panchanga, for example, calendar, the Vedic calendar, can predict the position of the sun, the moon, the constellations for thousands of years. thousands of years, precisely. It's not possible if there is no order in it. Water boils exactly at 100 degrees centigrade at sea level. And if you raise it above the sea level, the temperature also needs to be more according to a previous law. Everything follows the laws of nature. You cannot deviate from it. So, take our mind for instance. So, if someone says something bad to me, insults me, supposing somebody insults you in public, it is according to law that you will be very upset. If someone seriously insults you, privately or publicly, but especially publicly, it's not as though it's going to make you happy. This is exactly following the nature's law. Now, here's the issue and here's the problem. We all extend this thinking to ourselves. So, we believe that we are at the mercy of some kind of an order. And there's nothing we can do about it. What can you do? Are you going to live for 150 years? No way. You can't. And so you follow the order of time, order of genetics. So you feel this is the way it is. And the best you can do is to understand the particular science behind life and health and so on, and to try to get the best out of it. That's about it. Eventually, though, it is going to be end of your life. Now, there are various theories on what determines what laws determine our fate. Some say it is time. There's nothing else you can do. You are the function of time. When you are born and when you die, time is the independent variable. You are the dependent variable. Others feel that no, we can defy time to a certain extent. It is not absolutely certain. We can vary the. So they feel that it is the nature's laws that determine what our fate is. Others say that our fate depends on our previous karmas. As our previous lives karmas, therefore our fate now. Now, when you go into that direction, the question is, when did those karmas start? We all have that question. When did it start? So if you are told it never really started, this is like a circle. This is what we've been studying in some of our Vedanta classes, that the creation is, everything is in circles. It's not a straight line. So really, this is what is called anadi. Anadi means that it doesn't have a beginning. Like a circle. Circle, when you draw with an instrument, of course you started at some place, but you did such a good job that it becomes so smooth that you can never tell where it started from. So a person coming into a circle will never be able to tell where the circle started. So also with life, it's in a complete circle. But this also leaves us somewhat dissatisfied. We're not quite sure what the situation is. So here, the Vedantic thinking is, all else fails, you have to rely on your own experience. So as many of you know, the ones we have been studying with me for a while, there are three filters, three ways that we have to examine the truth of something. You know what that is: Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhava. So Shruti means the words, the wise words of the Vedas. Yukti means our own logical thinking to test it. Like the thinking that something cannot come out of nothing. And the Vedas also say it. And so, you cannot say that, why not? Why can't something come out of nothing? It's very possible. No. You have to follow the principles of right thinking. And so this is called Yukti. The third one is Anubhava. Anubhava means experience. Here in this particular issue, where I feel I am at the mercy of nature, there's nothing else that I can do, I have to utilize Anubhava first and then go to Shruti and Yukti later. What is the Anubhava? What experience are we talking about? The experience we're talking about is seeing that you always have a choice. You have an independent nature of choosing one way or the other. Always. Always. Everyone does for the whole life. And so you can decide what study you're going to do, arts or science. You're going to be an engineer or something else. And even if you suppose you make a wrong decision, you can always go back and redo it. You have that choice. So the choice is always there. Swamiji makes a point here that saying that if somebody points a gun at you and says, listen, either you give me your wallet or I'm going to shoot you. Swamiji says, even in such dire situations, your independence is still employed. You can do either one of them. And this is what happens. This is what happened. Just recently, as you know, we had lots of cases where particularly Apple laptops are very popular by robbers. So they see somebody sitting in Starbucks and they just grab it and run. So there was a young man who ran after the robbers and lost his life. That was his choice. So the choice is always there. So now, the next point is, this is an important point also to see. We have independence, but we don't use it. We have independence, but we don't use it. We choose not to invoke our independence. We are rather caught up in things that I have less control over, and we complain about that all the time. Like for instance, Swamiji, at that time this must have happened, and it happens from time to time, that there was a movement to accuse the college administrators on something, that you're not doing this and therefore we are going to gharao you. We're just going to sit around you and not allow you to leave. So he says, if you look at the lives of such people, their own life is a mess. Why don't you reform that first before you reform something that you have much less control over? So what that means is this. It means we choose not to invoke our independence, and we are deliberately complaining about things that we have no control over. Now comes an important lesson. Remember, we said that earlier, we said that in this creation, everything that is created follows a certain law, which means it is not independent. Here there is an important exception, and really it is not an exception, and that is the self is not dependent. The Atma is an independent entity. And to reiterate that, the Atma is an independent entity because it is not created. So if you look at our lives, it consists of an uncreated Atma which has always been there and always will be there. It does not, creation means a beginning. Atma does not have a beginning. It is not created. It is you. It is not something, Atma is not something that you possess. It is you. You don't possess it. What you possess is created and is dependent. But the Atma is not created, it is independent. So now we can go back to that example where somebody insults you in public. Okay, so let's examine that case. There what happens is, your mind is bound to be upset, very upset. Especially if the insult is uncalled for, it is not reasonable. You have a right to become extremely upset. Swamiji says, listen, even in that situation, amazingly enough, you, the Atma, has a choice of not getting upset. It's possible. Generally, it is not likely, but it is possible. It's very possible. And in fact, the very measure of progress in life, Vyaktitva ka vikas. So the vikas, the very development, means that you invoke your independent nature and not give in to your dependency. This is the culmination of this teaching in this text. So what is the problem in our life? Let's summarize it again. The problem is we are independent, but we do not know how to invoke it. So here, a general rule of life should be observed. Use it or lose it. For us to strengthen something, we must exercise our right again and again. This is true for even physical things. No, I'm facing that right now. Before the coronavirus, and of course I was sick for a month and a half with pneumonia before that, and I go to India, and so I have not been to a gym since the first of the year. 3 months have gone by. And unfortunately, I have either been unable to or have not gotten to it doing my own home exercises without any equipment. And what I find is that my muscles have atrophied. They're half the size what they used to be. And at my age, it is not good. So I've started to exercise again. And I have to invoke that. So even for physical things, you have to use it or lose it. Same thing with subtle things. Until you use your judgment, your right for the right judgment, you lose it. So see, Swamiji gives a couple of examples. He says, supposing you are a business owner and you've done well, you can now have, before that you used to do everything yourself, your accounting, your taxes and so on, but now you've grown to a point where you have a full-time account manager, sales manager and so on, and you are the owner. Now, if you don't check on the progress of the company regularly, you have no right to criticize anyone. He gives this example. He says that one time this business manager, he never used to even walk into the accountant's office. What are the assets and what's the income statement and so on. They were making money and he says, whatever. One day he decided to check on it and he found that there was some errors. So he confronted the accountant. And he says, why did you do it this way? And the accountant rose up and he says, this is the way it is going to be. Take it or leave it. Okay? I have been managing your business for a long time. I'm doing the best I can. Yes, I may have made some mistakes, but don't talk to me like that. In that situation, Swamiji says, you, the boss, have now become weaker than the person who you are employing. You have no right to even question him. You didn't have enough oversight all this time. And all of a sudden you appear on the scene and say, you should be done this way and so on. You have no right to do so. You weakened your authority all along. He gives another humorous example. He says, your spouse sometimes will ask you, what do you want for dinner? And you say, honey, I don't know. I'm busy. You just cook whatever you want to. This happens all the time, So you let her or him make, whoever is making the meals, make all the decisions. One day, your spouse makes a dal, let's say, Indian dal, which is not your favorite. And you now have a temper tantrum. He says, didn't you ask me? This is not my favorite dal. And she'll say, you know what, for the last 5 years, whenever I've asked you what kind of things you want, you have just given it me the choice. So this is my choice. You have no right to now stand up. So now this is our situation. Our sense of independence, which is me. It's not as though I possess independence. I am independent. I am the very nature of independence. But I have abdicated it. I have not used it. I have not investigated into it. And all this time, I am following the people that are dependent on me, like the accountant, the mind, the body, the various equipment that I have, I am totally dependent on them. So I have weakened the Atma to a point that they don't listen to me anymore. This is the situation. So Swamiji says we have lost our right to be independent. Even though we are independent, but we haven't used it. So now the question is, how do we correct this situation? One thing is for sure, not suddenly. Not suddenly. You can if you want to, but it won't work. He gives this example that if you get so angry at the accountant that you fire him, and you may end up worse than where you were before because this person really knows the business and you have not exercised the right overlordship on him, so he just did things on his own way. But if you did, things would have been different. So firing him, you may be in deeper problems. You have to hire somebody who doesn't know the business. You don't know the business. So the best thing is to swallow your pride and correct it in small steps. Small steps. So coming to your own self, supposing you decide, you know what, I am going to do samadhi, because in Vedanta and yoga it says samadhi, where you are oblivious of what is happening, is the thing to do. So yes, I have not been doing my job with respect to the mind and the body, but I'm just going to do nirvikalpa samadhi. I'm just going to shut myself in a room and I'm just going to start doing deep meditation. Foolish. It's not going to work. You'll find even worse than before. You will start disliking yourself. I cannot do anything. Whatever I want to do, what do I suppose? No. You have to take small steps and then grow from there. And in the very final thing, I would say that Swamiji has Swami Dayanand had a similar advice, really. It is very similar to this, what Swami Maheshananda is saying. What he said is, do the following. Suppose you are normally getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever time we have. Okay? And the body and the mind have become accustomed to it. You know, I don't know what your procedure is, that especially if you're not going to office. If you're going to office, well, not these days, but when you were going physically to the office, then you were set in a certain setup. But suppose you are retired, you don't have to go to office, you have a certain time that you normally get up. And the normal time to get up is dictated by your body and mind. Particularly if you go to late at night and your body says, I'm not going to get up before 6:37. I hope it's not much later than that. Then you have some other issues. But even 6:37 is relatively late. Swamiji's example is actually much more stricter than that, but I won't go into that. This is my own thinking. Supposing you want to get up at 6 o'clock, normally. Tell your mind and body, from tomorrow morning I'm going to get up at 5:30. They will complain. Say, what? That's too early. You're not getting me enough sleep. I'm going to be tired the whole day. You say, I don't care. If you're tired, you're tired. And I am just going to get up at 5:30. Now, The next thing is when 5:30, you may have to use an alarm because you not naturally, most likely not get up without an alarm at 5:30. When the alarm rings, get up. Don't say, well, today I don't know, but from tomorrow, no. That means that the body and the mind will say, aha, this fellow is soft. If we keep complaining, he may agree to not change. Ramji says, make a small step. Get up at 5:30. Supposing you get up at 5:30 and there's nothing to do, that doesn't matter. You just get up at 5:30. Because the effects of self-mastery will be very palpable. You will really feel, oh, I can. So you have to really take baby steps before you take the big steps, and then extend it in all the spheres. All the spheres. You know, it's interesting. I find that this kind of behavior where you take control extends all over, in all spheres. Take, for example, telling a truth. So telling a truth doesn't mean that you are lying through your teeth. That doesn't mean anything. It has lots of shades in your life and my life. I'll tell you a very simple one. Supposing you are warming up the food in the microwave, and you feel, you know what, I think 1 minute should be enough. So you don't set up for 1 minute, but you promise to take it out after 1 minute. Okay, this is what your resolution is. Then when the food is being heated and the microwave is running, you decide, well, I don't know, I don't want to do it twice. So let me kind of do it for like 1.5 minutes. And if it gets a little bit too warm, it's okay, I'll let it cool. This is an example where you are letting your mind decide, you did not decide. You made the decision, I'm going to do it for 1 minute. Now, if you had not made the decision, that's another thing. But you made the decision based on some thinking. Stick to it. Small step. I find these people doing all the time, not adhering to what their plan is. Another one, for example, is going to a social gathering. Someone says, please come for dinner, and I've invited 3 or 4 other couples. Please come at 7 o'clock. And I find this being done all the time. My children, some friends, and so on and so forth. And both my wife and I are much more punctual. She's even more punctual than I am. And we adhere to what we promised. And we are the first ones sitting there. Others have not come. But if someone has invited us, we want to keep to it. What I find people doing is, about 20 to 7, you start thinking about getting ready. And you still have about 15-20 minutes of travel to do. How are you going to reach there in time? This is not speaking truth. You can tell someone, listen, I'm going to be 10 minutes late. Is that okay? Most people will say yes. There's a friend of ours who is notorious for not serving dinner until 9 o'clock. She might call people at 7:30, but she does not serve dinner at 9 o'clock. So if you ask her, why is it that you don't serve? She says, well, people don't come, and I cannot serve until people come. They all come late. What is my fault? You ask their friends, why is it that you are late? They say, well, she doesn't serve food until 9 o'clock. What are we going to do? We're not going to be drinking for an hour and a half. The whole thing breaks down. So anyway, the end of this whole text is that to fully develop as a human being, Vyaktitva ka vikas means you discover and assert your Atma's independence. This is a very powerful force that you have. Use it. Use it wisely. Use it with some known principles. Use your viveka. See what is happening. What is happening is that the weaker is becoming stronger and the strong is becoming weaker. Life is wasted. This is a very beautiful advice, and I hope we can think over this. I mentioned to you that because I have not displayed the notes on the TV and I have not had the time to really write it out. I have my own notes that I just sort of look at before I start the class, but I have not been able to do that. And so I requested if anybody can please help me. And Sujata Dave from Chicago was very willing to work with me, and I had a long 45-minute telephone conversation with her this morning. And our plan is that instead of sending out these notes, the rough notes to you now, we will really make a good job of it and make it into a small booklet that will be sent out to you. I'm very happy about her offer. She says she has the time and the willingness to do so, and I need her help as well. So we have to find the right software, and roughly speaking, we're thinking of 3 months. So it'll take us that long to do. But I think at that point in time, you will have a written backup to the classes that we went through. So I'm hoping that you will think about, as I do too, these apply to me as well, that we think about these very, very important and very beautiful concepts that Swami Maheshananji has presented to us in a form which is non-traditional in the way Vedanta is taught. So he takes it as, well, let us look at a human being and what is the best potential for that human being, and what is the end, what is the uddeshya. And then uddeshya is swatantrata, complete independence. We know that from Vedanta, but to present it in this form is something very beautiful. And so I really enjoyed talking to you about that, and I thank you for watching, and we will go from there. So now I'll just say a small prayer, and I will be happy to look into any questions that you may have and try to answer it for the next 5, 10, 15 minutes. Okay? Om asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnamevavashishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, let us see what Ah, you're right. It should be April 2, not March 2. Sorry about that. Um, in fact, if Chandra, if you can tell me how to change the title of the YouTube, I'll be appreciative of it. In fact, at another place, I made a mistake. Instead of saying fulfilling, I put down fulfillment. I'd like to be very consistent, so please tell me about that. Happy Sri Ram Navami, everybody. So wonderful. So far, I don't see any questions. So I'll wait for a while and see if you still think of something. I would be happy to do so. Oh yeah, so regarding next week, so I think one of you said once a week, one of you said twice a week is okay. So there was nothing definite. And so instead of pushing this, let us just go for once a week for now. And next Tuesday, let us have a class at 8 o'clock. And I will look for some material within the next 3-4 days. I don't have a plan on what I would do, but Ishvara will put some thoughts into my mind and we will pursue it. So at this point, we will have a class next week and at 8 o'clock, and the text is yet to be decided. So this is how I would leave it. Any other questions that have come up? No. All right. Thank you all. Hari Om. Hello, Chandra.
Yeah, Guruji, are you still alive?
Yes.
You sitting there?
Yes.
It doesn't give an option for you to say?
Okay, let me see.